Okay, so now how would we put that in? How would you put that into a question?
Yeah. So my question was like, uh, it feels like sometimes unconscious have like some different, its own worldview, and like more or less someone's actions are judged of like actions are decided more or less by this unconscious mind, and sometimes like it just suppresses some information that is against
Very
that
good.
worldview and amplifies those information that's like fully up with that worldview. So like if I feel that if my worldview is that I will never get a job or not
Yeah,
like
it's gonna
anything,
sabotage you. It'll sabotage you. All right, so good. You're
which
bringing up that's a very important concept, the unconscious mind. Well, the unconscious mind is a very interesting construct because it was only invented, as far as I know, about 1901 by Sigmund Freud. Uh, well, I shouldn't say that. I haven't read enough Arabic or Persian in the West, let's say. Okay, and so he said there's all these dark and dank impulses, murderous impulses, suicidal impulses, death wishes, sex drives, perversions, fetishes, so on and so forth. He had a grand old time because he was doing, not a small amount of coke. Those guys were coked out pretty much,
yeah,
and they gave it to some of their patients too. Can you imagine? I'm sure the patients got better for a while anyway, but they didn't, of course. So anyway, you could just do away with the unconscious mind altogether because if you're a meditator and you know your own mind, then you'll find that whatever's unconscious is conscious. You just have to get there. And if you're really peaceful, if you really just be, then come past life types of experiences. Then come, all kinds of things, but they're not because you're emotional. It's the opposite. If somebody said, "Oh, I love hummingbirds. I love hummingbirds. Here, let me grab one." No, hummingbirds too. Oh, I love butterflies. I love butterflies. Let me grab one, right? Oh, I love them. Let me get them, right? You'll end up with there's not a butterfly in your hand. There's just a mush. You know what I'm saying? So different things require different treatment, and this requires a still body. The stiller the better, but obviously, if you can still walk and do it, I mean, that's something. But a still body, the things we spoke of, the discipline, the effort, the information, the insight, the patience, all that. And then it will happen. You just have to work at it sincerely for yourself, not for anybody else. And not to get anything else, frankly. I think that's maybe a problem. The only reason to do this is to know truth, to know reality, to know God, to know you, yourself, right? To know Atman,
yeah,
to know Krishna. Okay, and so what Krishna or uh, Buddha or Jesus means to people who've woken up is totally different than what it means to people who haven't. And not in a shallow way either. There's an understanding, a deep understanding. Because it's not the normal, it's not the thing that you expect. It's not thinking. It's not grabbing. It's not knowing. It's not something you memorize. It's something that's only in the present. It can only be found in the present. But if you search for the present moment, and you should do that, see what happens. That'd be a good exercise.
I was doing that. Like I was going through Power of Now again, and Eckhart keeps telling that like being present is basically surrendering to current situation and like accepting everything,
Yeah,
not just positive things or just negative things.
yeah, and
Like
that's fine as long as you
things
don't.
are suppressed by unconscious mind. I don't want things to be suppressed by unconscious mind.
Well, then
Everything
don't
should
do it.
be
Don't do it. So unconscious, we can replace unconscious with what's another word for unconscious? Untrained mind, or uncultivated mind, or unskilled mind. We'll just call it an unskilled mind. And I know this from 50 years of practicing, and a lot of what Freud observed was dead on. And remember, these guys had no use for anything that had to do with the soul or the spirit. These are hardcore atheists. As a matter of fact, Jung, Jung, Jung and Freud got in fights because Jung was willing to admit the possibility of a world beyond this one. And Freud said, no way, that's an infantile desire. That comes from your baby. You just want your mama's breasts and your daddy's, security. And that has nothing to do with truth. Well, Freud was wrong, very wrong. And the ages were right. And if you'd read these books without being arrogant, or if you'd read them not looking for what he was looking for, but looking for what was there, something that Jung didn't do either, unfortunately, because he didn't have the translation. I'm sure he would have if he had the right translation, but what he had was junk. And so then we end up with these partial methods, psychoanalysis, But we could just do away with that concept of the unconscious mind. Now, if you really wanted to get into it, you could spend years and years and years and years and years analyzing everything. Oh, when I was a baby, my grandmother, bit me, when I was in the womb. And then when I was born, my father, looked at me funny, and they made me eat this orange paste for a year or something like that. I mean, it'll be full of trauma, but full of everything. You could do that, but it's not unconscious. You just haven't remembered. And so that unconscious, conscious mind, wasn't just unconscious, but it was unconscious, preconscious, and conscious. And preconscious would be reserved for those things like, oh, I forgot completely that, my grandparents locked me in a closet for a month when I was, 5. Duh, And so you would postulate, well, something must have been keeping that memory down. And the people who are repressing memories like that, you could free up a lot of energies by just letting those come free, right? So there's something to it. But we have much more elegant theories, frankly, from the East. So I wouldn't get caught up in some primitive. I mean, I wouldn't worry about unconscious, preconscious, and conscious mind at the moment. Because you can go to a dream, and what are you dreaming? Are you dreaming unconscious stuff? Are you dreaming preconscious stuff? Or are you dreaming conscious stuff? You're dreaming all three, actually. But, it's a big topic. I'd love to go into it, but I don't think the yield for you at the moment is that high. Except to say, don't listen to these... don't listen to half-baked people, because they will lead you down the wrong way. The saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Well, what happens if the step is off by, let's say, 5 degrees? What happens after 1,000 miles? Instead of ending at the top of Mount Sumeru... Sorry?
Yeah, it basically leads to a different destination.
Right, so it begins with a single step, but it has to be in the right direction. And that's the role, that's my only role is like, thankfully, the people before me did so much work with their lives that I have these things in written materials. And I have what they said. And so my only job is to transmit the information. Right? And in so doing, I'm fulfilling my purpose. And, whatever. I don't know, actually know what's going to happen on the other side. That's not my business. That's not my business. Who cares? Whatever it is, it'll be good because the nature of reality is good. Infinitely good in a way that humans can't understand yet. Okay?
Yeah, so I was reading that Power of Now and Surrender.